Hello, I'm glad to be back with you guys. Today I'm going to be talking about how to identify fake news. Now, identifying fake news is getting to be a real problem in our world simply because people are thinking that fake news is real news, and there's a lot of confusion going on. So, according to GCF Learn Free, fake news is, I'm gonna hold this up so I can read it. So, fake news, the definition, and just a reminder, you guys can always pause the video, write down the notes if you like, or rewatch it, especially if I'm talking too fast. All right, so fake news, the definition is any article or video containing, oh, I think I missed a few letters there. Containing, there we go, untrue information disguised as a credible news source. Okay, so any article or video containing untrue information disguised as a credible news source. A lot of these are very sensationalized, outrageous stories, and they tend to use very over-dramatic headlines, things like that. These are getting to be very dangerous, though, in today's day and age, because a lot of people don't recognize fake news as fake news. They begin to think that they're real, okay? And so I would say we do need to make sure that we are paying attention to the information that we are consuming online, especially because this is where fake news tends to flourish, okay? So I do want to let you know that jokes and satire are not fake news. Okay? So jokes, I would say practical jokes, or even things that people post online as a joke, things that are funny. And satire, if you're not familiar with satire, there are websites that produce content that are intended to be humorous. They are not real. They know they're not real. And they're entirely based around their readers understanding and knowing that they're not real, that they're supposed to be funny, or making fun of like a political stance or something like that. There's several websites out there like this. The Onion is one. Babylon Bee is actually a Christian-based satire, so it makes fun in a nicer way about some of the silly things that we believe. And stuff like that. So jokes and satire are not fake news, but that's because they are based around their readers. I'll put this down. Based around their readers being knowledgeable about the strategy that it basically, they know that it's satire and not real, okay? So just to let you know, anytime you hear, oh, fake news, if it's from the Onion, no, it's intended to be like as if it were a real news story, but based around the fact that everybody knows it's not. All right, so that's why it's not fake news. So the question becomes, how do we figure out what is fake news or not? All right, get this all erased here. Okay, so, how do we differentiate between fake and real news? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask, what site is it from? Okay. If it is from a mainstream news source, it's probably going to be credited or like credible. Most major recognized news channels are not going to be producing clickbait or fake news. All right. So if the site is from, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a credible website. But if the site is from a credible website, like a scientific harvard.org, I think is what it would be, or harvard.edu or whatever, then it's probably credible. If it's from joesopinions.com, probably not a credible source. So make sure and pay attention what site it is coming from, okay? Number 2, check the domain name. Now this is a little bit different because any fake news can claim it is from harvardlaw.edu. But when you hold your cursor, or if you look at the very top at the address bar, or when you hold your cursor over any of the links, at the very bottom of the page, it'll have http://www. something. And if that is different than the name at the top, it's probably not a credible source. A lot of times what fake news websites will do is instead of using .com, they will use .com.co. Okay? Or they'll do like .edu.com. And these are typically not going to be credible ones. This one, potentially, it might be, but these, definitely not. Okay? Especially if there's something added after the .com, .edu, .gov, whatever it is, because they make them look more like the credible websites. Okay? So the next thing you're going to check are what are the author's sources? Oops, I have to make my S backwards. There we go. So what are the author's sources? I could make up a statistic and say it's from a credible source. Like I could say 9 out of 10 high schoolers don't do their homework. But if I have nothing to back that up, if I have no studies, so always check the links. Sometimes the links look right. They'll say, it'll be like, it'll say it's from CNN.gov or CNN.com or like Harvard.edu. But when you click on it, it actually will take you to joesopinions.com. So make sure that you check to make sure that the links are reliable, credible links. Make sure they're supported by evidence. So, supported by evidence, and this can be from a study. It can be, I would say, from other news sources, things like that. Dates are very important. A lot of times fake news will take a news story and twist it and change it, and it'll have a similar date but slightly different. So always check the dates. I just had a friend post a story on Facebook that they were all upset about, but the news story was actually from 7 years ago. If you looked at the date on the news story, it was from 7 years ago and wasn't anything we needed to be worrying about. So always check the date. And then other data. You should be able to find information on other data and evidence by checking other sites. If something looks too good to be true, Google it and see if other people are reporting it. Legitimate news sources are going to, multiple places will report on the same story. So see if you can find any other information. If you only find that information on one website, it's probably questionable. And so, as I said, once again, make sure and check the date on it. And then number 4 is fact check. Sometimes a news story is true 7 years ago. And so maybe it's not something that needs to be shared now because it's no longer relevant. Maybe it's something else, like you can check the facts on it now. You can search for keywords. So let's say there was a story about, I don't know, how a dog dialed 911, to save its owner. So you could Google dog dials 911. And if you look for that, you're going to find articles about it. So as I said, keep in mind, if you only find one article, it's probably questionable and something that you need to continue researching because it's probably fake news. All right, so those are ways to identify fake news and not get caught up on stories that aren't true. And one of the things that we need to do with media is be responsible and make sure that we're only sharing information on media that is true.